So recently I had decided to do some extra creative shooting on the side for a couple personal projects. But one problem I ran into was that I needed to use ice cubes to get the result that I wanted. And the problem with actually using real ice cubes is that they're rather volatile for a shoot, in that they melt quickly, you have water running all over the place, and if you want to keep things as, contained and predictable as possible, you want something that you can actually rely on to not change shape or state of mass. And what I had thought about doing was purchasing artificial ice cubes, getting them online, since we don't really have any place around here locally. The problem with artificial ice cubes is, first of all, I'm cheap, and I didn't want to have to pay more than I had to for them. And secondly, I'm very impatient, and so the last thing I want to do is get an idea, get something going, and then have to wait for materials to be shipped in from, some retailer online. What I am going to attempt to do is create my own. And I had found a tutorial on Flickr, and so I'm going to try to kind of replicate that here. It's very simple, very cheap. And what I'm going to be using is aluminum foil and clear plastic beads from the craft section of Walmart. And total, you're looking at $2 for the beads and $1 or $2 for the foil. So what I'm going to do is attempt to make artificial ice cubes using these as the resin, making some molds out of the aluminum foil, going to be melting it in an oven, and we'll see what happens.
Now the basic idea here is to take your aluminum foil, create a mold, and then melt your plastic beads so they will all congeal basically into a solid cube. So take your foil and wrap it around your square object, fold it over multiple times in the same fashion that you would a Christmas gift. You want to make sure that the foil is about twice as high as you want your final ice cube to be. That way, whenever you fill the mold with the clear plastic beads, you can put enough in to allow it to melt down to the final size without having to refill during the middle. After you have your molds wrapped and folded, make sure that they are flattened out and secure, and then fill them with the plastic beads. Then what you want to do is crank up your oven to probably about 400 degrees. I had initially set my oven at 325 degrees for 20 minutes. Unfortunately, it did absolutely nothing. So after about an hour, I turned up the temperature and they melted quickly. Once they've all melted down, pull them out of the oven and be careful, they will be extremely hot. Set them aside and let them cool until you can actually touch them. Then unwrap your ice cubes. Now for me, I had some lingering pieces of aluminum foil that had melted into the artificial ice cubes. I tried removing it with a utility knife, but that didn't work. So eventually, I simply took a metal file and used that to file down any of the sharp edges, round out the corners of my cubes, as well as file things down to remove the aluminum foil from the cubes themselves. Now, when I was finished with that process, the cubes looked very rough and scratched. So what I did was I cranked the oven back on again and I put them in the oven for maybe about 5 minutes at about 400 to 450 degrees. This allowed the cubes to start melting again, which helped to smooth out any of those tiny scuffs and imperfections and give them that clear shine on the outside. After they were done cooling for a second time, I pulled them off the plate and they were ready to go.